Welcome everybody to the 2025 WNBA Finals presented by YouTube TV. We'll begin with remarks from Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, and then we'll turn.
What if the most famous, most talked about athlete in the entire country was making less money from her sport than your local accountant? It sounds impossible, like a story from a different era, but it's the shocking reality that the WNBA tried desperately to keep under wrap. When the truth about Caitlin Clark's contract finally leaked, it didn't just create headlines. It triggered a full-blown meltdown at the highest levels of the league, exposing a truth far more broken than anyone could have imagined. This isn't just a story about a low salary. It's about a system on the verge of collapse, a commissioner in panic mode, and a cover-up that fell apart in spectacular fashion. The number that finally broke the internet was almost laughably small. When Caitlin Clark, now the woman who single-handedly tripled the viewership for women's college basketball, was drafted number 1, the public expected a monumental contract to match her monumental talent. Instead, the details that surfaced sent a shockwave of disbelief across the globe. Her 4-year rookie deal was for a total of just over $338,000, but the real stunner was her first-year salary, a mere $76,000, $535. To put that in perspective, the very last pick in the NBA draft, a player most fans will never even know, signs a contract worth over $1 million a year. The public reaction was instant and brutal. It became such a massive story that even the President of the United States weighed in, publicly stating that women are not being paid their fair share. But the league was suddenly facing a public relations nightmare of its own making. Every sports show, every news channel, and every social media feed was buzzing with the same question: how could this possibly be happening? The WNBA, a league that had been fighting for relevance for decades, was finally in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. The insult was so profound that it overshadowed the excitement of her arrival, and as the outrage grew louder, the league office knew it had to do something. But what happened next would only make things 1,000 times worse. As the firestorm erupted, WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert scrambled to do damage control, but her response was seen by many as a complete disaster. Instead of addressing the core issue of the shockingly low pay, so she launched into a desperate media tour that felt less like leadership and more like a frantic attempt to change the subject. It was a classic case of corporate deflection. Engelbert appeared on major news networks not with a plan to fix the problem, but with a list of talking points designed to distract from the embarrassing truth. She repeatedly brought up the league's new investment in charter flights for players, a long overdue improvement that had nothing to do with player salaries. She talked about player marketing deals and other benefits, essentially trying to convince the public that the $76,000 salary wasn't the whole story. But her defensive tone and refusal to acknowledge the fundamental unfairness of the situation only added fuel to the fire. It came across as a bizarre tantrum, a powerful executive who was angry that the public had dared to look behind the curtain. She painted a picture of a league that was making progress, but it felt hollow. Every time she mentioned charter flights, critics would immediately fire back. That's great, but it doesn't fix the fact that your biggest star is being paid pennies on the dollar. Her strategy completely backfired. By trying to downplay the salary issue, she made the league look out of touch. And even worse, unapologetic. The public wasn't buying the spin. They saw a league that had been handed a golden goose in Caitlin Clark and was seemingly refusing to pay for the golden. But what the commissioner was so desperately trying to steer the conversation away from was an even more complex truth about where Caitlin Clark's real money was coming from. See, the truth that made the WNBA look less like a partner and more like a footnote in her financial empire. The shocking secret that the commissioner didn't want to discuss was that Caitlin Clark's WNBA salary is, for all intents and purposes, completely irrelevant to her financial reality. While the league was paying her less than a mid-level manager, Clark was quietly building a business empire that dwarfed the entire WNBA payroll. The real money machine was humming along, completely outside the league's control. Before she even stepped onto a WNBA court, she had secured a monumental endorsement deal with Nike, rumored to be worth a staggering $28 million over 8 years. This deal alone included her own signature shoe, an honor reserved for only the most elite athletes on the planet. But it didn't stop there. Gatorade and State Farm and Panini all lined up to make her the face of their brands, pouring millions more into her bank account. Suddenly, the $76,000 salary didn't just look small. It looked utterly insulting. Clark was a walking, talking corporation, a one-woman economic boom, and her official employer was paying her what amounted to a rounding error in her overall income. This created a deeply uncomfortable situation for the WNBA. It exposed the fact that the league needed her far more than she needed them. She wasn't just an employee. She was a phenomenon who had chosen to grace the league with her presence. The power dynamic was completely flipped. Instead of the league making her a star, she was a star who was making the league relevant. And every time a new endorsement deal was announced, it served as another glaring reminder of the massive gap between her market value and her league-mandated salary. This begged a much deeper question. If everyone from Nike to the fans knew her worth, why was the WNBA itself seemingly incapable of paying it? The answer was buried in a legal document that acted as a set of golden handcuffs on the entire league. The reason the WNBA couldn't just write Caitlin Clark a bigger check, even if they wanted to, is a complex and frustrating one. The league is bound by its own rules, specifically a document called the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or CBA. This is a master contract negotiated between the league and the players' union that dictates everything from travel conditions to, most importantly, player salaries. It sets a strict rookie wage scale, which is why Clark's salary was predetermined before she was even drafted. The current CBA was signed back in 2020, years before anyone could have predicted the meteoric rise of a player like Caitlin Clark. At the time, the agreement was designed to provide financial stability for the league and ensure a fair distribution of revenue among all players, not just the stars. It was a system built for a league that was slowly and steadily growing, not one that was about to be hit by a cultural tidal wave. Now, that very same document has become a set of golden handcuffs. The league is legally trapped, unable to break the rules for one player, no matter how famous she is. If they were to give Clark a special deal, it would violate the agreement with the players' union and create chaos. So, while Commissioner Engelbert was publicly deflecting, she was privately wrestling with a problem she had no immediate solution for. The league was profiting immensely from Clark's presence, but its own legal framework prevented it from rewarding her appropriately. It's a bureaucratic nightmare that has put the WNBA in an impossible position. Stick to the rules and look cheap, or break the rules and face a mutiny from the rest of the players. This internal conflict is the dirty little secret of the Caitlin Clark pay controversy. It's not just about one player. About a system that was built for a different world, a system that is now cracking under the weight of a once-in-a-generation superstar. While the league was caught in its own bureaucratic trap, the Caitlin Clark effect was transforming the sport in real time to creating a tidal wave of attention and money that made her low salary look more absurd by the day. The numbers were simply staggering. In her first few games, television viewership for the WNBA skyrocketed, with some broadcasts seeing a 200 to 300% increase compared to the previous year. Games featuring her Indiana Fever were moved to larger arenas just to accommodate the unprecedented demand for ticket. Arenas across the country were selling out for the first time in years, with fans clamoring to get a glimpse of the new face of the sport. Her jersey became the top-selling jersey for any athlete in any sport on the day of the draft. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was a one-woman stimulus package for a league that desperately needed it. But this incredible success became a double-edged sword. Every sold-out seat, every record-breaking TV rating, and every new merchandise sale only amplified the injustice of her $76,000 salary. It created a glaring and deeply uncomfortable paradox. The person most responsible for this financial boom was the one seeing the least of its direct rewards. This put the league in an even more awkward position. They were celebrating this newfound success on one hand, while on the other, they were being relentlessly criticized for underpaying the very person who was making it all possible. The Caitlin Clark effect was proving to be too big, too fast for the WNBA's outdated structure to handle. She was outgrowing the league in real time, and the financial disparity between her impact and her income was creating a tension that was about to spill over from the headlines and onto the court itself, revealing a much darker side to her celebrated arrival. Beyond the contracts and the headlines, a more subtle and arguably more volatile drama began to unfold inside the locker rooms and on the hardwood floors of the WNBA. The insane level of media attention focused on Caitlin Clark created an unspoken tension that you could feel during every game. While Clark was being hailed as the savior of the league, many veteran players, women who had toiled in relative obscurity for years to build the WNBA, were suddenly being treated like background characters in her story. This reportedly led to a level of professional jealousy and resentment that manifested in a harsh physical welcome to the league. Opponents played her with an aggressive intensity that often crossed the line, with cheap shots and hard fouls that seemed designed to send a message. You may be the media's darling, but you still have to earn your stripes here. The controversy was fueled by a few high-profile incidents that went viral, showing Clark being knocked to the ground by flagrant fouls that looked less like basketball plays and more like personal attacks. Some analysts argued it was just part of the welcome to the pros treatment that every rookie gets, but many fans saw something more sinister at play. They saw a league whose existing stars were frustrated with being overlooked and were taking it out on the new phenom. So, this created a complicated and toxic narrative. Was this just tough, competitive basketball, or was it a sign of a deeper rift within the league? The situation put the WNBA in another bind. If they didn't protect their biggest asset, they risked alienating the millions of new fans she had brought to the sport. But if they gave her special treatment, they risked validating the claims of jealousy and creating even more animosity among the players. The unspoken tension in the locker room became a symbol of the league's larger identity crisis, a battle between the old guard and the new sensation, with the future of the WNBA hanging in the balance. Amidst all the on-court drama and public relations disasters, but the WNBA's leadership is quietly preparing for a single event that holds the key to solving almost all of its problems: the upcoming negotiation of its media rights deal. This is the billion-dollar fight on the horizon, and it will determine the league's future for the next decade. The WNBA's current television deal, which pays the league around $60 million a year, is set to expire in 2025. This was a deal signed in a pre-Caitlin Clark world. Now, thanks to the insane ratings and mainstream attention she has generated, the league is in a position of power it has never experienced before. Experts predict that the new media rights deal could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually, potentially quadrupling the league's current income or more. This influx of cash is the only realistic path to solving the salary crisis. A massive new TV deal would inject so much revenue into the league that it could finally afford to sign a new collective bargaining agreement that pays all players from rookies to veterans a salary that reflects their status as elite professional athlete. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. This is why Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has been so focused on growth metric, even while deflecting on the salary issue. She knows that every sold-out arena and every record-breaking broadcast is another bargaining chip she can take to the negotiation table with networks like ESPN and Amazon. The future of the WNBA isn't just riding on Caitlin Clark's performance on the court. It's riding on her ability to prove to media executives that her audience is here to stay. This upcoming negotiation is the ultimate high-stakes gamble. Engelbert succeeds, she could usher in a new golden age for the WNBA, with higher salaries, better facilities, and more resources for everyone. But if she fumbles it, she will have wasted the biggest opportunity in the league's history, potentially squandering the momentum of the Caitlin Clark era forever. In the end, the story of Caitlin Clark and her $76,000 salary is so much more than a contract dispute. It's the story of a league forced to confront its own limitations in the most public way imaginable. Clark has become a walking paradox for the WNBA. She is both its greatest savior and its most glaring problem. Her unprecedented talent and marketability are generating a level of interest and revenue the league has only ever dreamed of, potentially securing its financial future for generations to come. At the same time, her stardom has shone a harsh, unforgiving light on the league's systemic flaws, from its embarrassingly low pay scale to the internal tensions bubbling just beneath the surface. The entire controversy has exposed a league that was fundamentally unprepared for a superstar of her magnitude. It was a system built for survival, not for explosive growth. And now, it's cracking under the pressure. The WNBA is at a critical crossroads, a moment in time that will be remembered as either the beginning of its ascent into the mainstream of professional sports or as a colossal missed opportunity. The future now rests on the shoulders of its leadership to navigate this complex crisis. It all comes down to one final, if thought-provoking, question. Will the league harness the power of the Caitlin Clark phenomenon to rebuild itself into the major league it's always aspired to be, or will the weight of her stardom prove to be too much for its fragile foundations to bear?